This is Philip Rosenthal, and I'm at one of my favorite places to pray for South Africa. And particularly, I'd like to encourage you to pray for the protection of our right to religious freedom, of protection of freedom of speech, which is under threat by the hate speech bill. Now, last week I gave an update as to what this bill was threatening to do to our free speech. And we got some news back from Parliament in that they were going to be proceeding with considering this bill, but it was found that two of the most important organizations' submissions hadn't actually been considered in the proposals from the Department of Justice. These were Freedom of Religion SA and the Institute of Race Relations, which certainly have important things to say on this subject. We don't know whether they missed other submissions as well in the process, but Parliament has asked them to go and do an audit of this and to do it properly. So this gives us more time to both pray and to study the proposals. I've started to study what the latest proposals are from Department of Justice, and some of the things that they're proposing are an improvement because it make it more difficult for somebody to be found guilty of hate speech, because it requires several tests, more than one test, to be fulfilled at the same time. But they've also introduced a proposal for a new, very vague concept of what they would call cultural harm. Now, I don't know what cultural harm is, and I haven't been able to find out what anybody else who knows what it means. But anything that's vague, that's put into the hate speech bill, is likely to be abused by judges who want to push their own particular political viewpoint. And we've seen two judgments just recently which to me seem not to make sense. In the one judgment, the words "kill the Boer" in a song were considered not to be hate speech, and in another judgment, the flying of the old South African flag was considered to be hate speech. Now, personally, I don't have any interest in flying the old South African flag. I'm not interested in that. But that sounds to me very arbitrary. I would say that "kill the Boer" is definitely hate speech, and the old South African flag, whether you agree with it or not, is not hate speech. Doesn't motivate anybody to hurt anybody else. Maybe somebody might be offended by that. But the problem is that if people are allowed to stop something just because they are offended by that, what about people who are offended by the gospel, the Christian message, and our views on sexual morality? We need to protect the right to offend, which doesn't mean we want to go out and offend people, but just that we have a right to offend without going to jail, because otherwise the gospel, which offends some people, could end up sending Christians to jail. And that is why we need to have a very strong religious exception clause, or otherwise we need to scrap this bill altogether. And personally, I would prefer to scrap this bill altogether, but please pray for your leaders. They are taking it seriously, and pray also for those organizations that are speaking up on this, and I believe there will be more opportunities to speak up as well. So please share this video with your friends, encourage them to pray